welcome to Check It Out, Comrade. I'm Nick Lauber.
I'm Gary Butterfield.
And I'm Kole Ross.
And this week we are doing Prison Architect and the Stanley Parable. This is an indie game podcast where every other week we bring you two new indie games that we think it's worth your time to check out and play. And let's just go ahead and get right into Prison Architect, guys.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Yeah, as you heard, we are joined by Kole, partner on other podcasts, and part of that is, I think, out of the three of us, he has at least the most man hours put into this game.
Yeah, like an upsetting amount of time, actually. for as little like calendar time as I dedicated to it, it's just upsetting.
Yeah,
I went into a
I'm
fugue
upset.
state.
Yeah, I only just got the most recent, which as of this time, I believe, Gary, you and I played Alpha 14.
Yes.
So that's the only one I've played so far, and I mean, I've enjoyed it, but it definitely haven't put in quite the hours that you have. So
yeah. I played all of my time was during Alpha 12.
Okay.
I intended to do some more time for this, but the Stanley Parable called.
Right.
but yeah, it might be Alpha 12. I think it's wherever they added Contraband was when I picked up.
Okay, so for the uninitiated, Prison Architect is a prison running sim made by Introversion Software, who are the guys who made Uplink and Darwinia. And Kole, since you have the most experience with it so far, why don't you go ahead and tell us what you think is cool or interesting about Prison Architect?
Yeah, so I think that more than it being a complete simulation, it definitely fails in a lot of regards, just because it's incomplete and a bunch of the stuff doesn't really work.
Right.
I think it's this kind of a weird the mood that it brings to you, which is you're optimizing these systems, which, the theming means that any optimization that you do is just in, counterbalance or in opposition to the quality of the life of the people that are under your control. And as you kind of like get into this and you start seeing the matrix, you see past the idea that these are supposed to be humans, right?
Right.
So you're running this prison, and the closest analog that I've heard is like Dwarf Fortress or whatever. I never played Dwarf Fortress because I can't do ASCII, but yeah, this definitely makes you feel real weird about some of the choices you're making.
Yeah, I definitely, I feel like I got this as a, as a simulation, it kind of is what it is. Like, I probably played it for 2 or 3 hours. I think that if the game was to have a point, you've arrived at it, is that, it is forcing you to do this kind of abstraction that real people have to, decisions real people actually have to make.
Yeah, it's very interesting in that, like, there's plenty of, like you said, Dwarf Fortress is an app comparison, or like Dungeon Keeper or anything. But all of those sort of games, you're competing to, or you're trying to just please all of the minions that there are.
Yeah, fantasy races.
Yeah.
Fantasy minions.
And this one, like, there's needs, but no matter how satiated everyone is, none of them want to be there.
Right.
So they're never pleased. Like, you can't just give them more and more stuff to make them more and more happy. It's just a baseline of needs met versus how angry are they, and how, when's the next killing going to happen.
Right. And it's a scary game because, like, you live in fear of that radio squawk, right? Like,
yeah.
You never know which one of the squawks is going to just turn into, now I need to call the SWAT team. Now we need to, like, get the fire department involved, right?
You can't pipe in freedom to them. There's not like a freedom utility button, and just have to make sure that goes to every prisoner.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes it a cool, like, cross section between, your standard sort of Dwarf Fortress style game, God game, and also kind of a puzzle where instead of it just being keep building, keep getting new stuff so that everyone's happy, it's also this, like, also keep track of everyone and try and spot when the weirdness is going to happen and get on top of it.
Yeah.
It actually, I think, keeps you more engaged than Dwarf Fortress does. Dwarf Fortress, has its own sort of self-leading goals that you can give yourself to go, build out this cool complex and mine this and fight that. But this one, there's an element of the enemy, the game against you, and you have to keep on top of it all.
Yeah. Is it perpetual? Like, can you play a perfect game of Prison Architect that goes on forever, or are the forces that are against you just going to continue to stack up?
You know what? I'm not sure. I think it can be perpetual in the way that SimCity is perpetual. Like, eventually what I did was I narrowed down like what the ratio of guards to prisoners to administrators should be in order to stay tenable. And it's a really tenuous balance between those. Incurring like specific costs per cells, and then how many showers you need per per person. It's really, really difficult homeostasis to maintain, but I could see it going, just because there is that escape valve if you need it, right?
Yeah, I wonder if I think as it's being an early access game and still in quote unquote alpha, I think that end game hasn't really come across as an importance yet. So I assume there likely will be more in like structural goals that there will actually be ends to meet.
Even the tech tree isn't finished yet. Like you can see, like they'll just straight up say this has no use right now.
Yeah. That was true in our version as well. I think I did see, though, a review of sort of just this newest version and some changes that came along with it. And one cool thing they did that kind of helps extend that end game even more is that you can sell your prison. Mm-hmm. It's rated for an amount of how good it is, basically, how many prisoners it can keep and whatnot. And you can sell it, and then that money you have, you can use to start a new prison. Mm-hmm. So even if it's not a perpetual single prison, you can keep, building on your success and making bigger and bigger and crazier complexes.
Did you guys ever restart in order to like fix your mistakes? Because my first play session, which lasted several hours, I think I built like 4 prisons.
Like, yeah, I did it like 12 times, like an ungodly amount of restarting because exactly as you were saying, like there's a perfection that you keep trying to meet.
Mm-hmm. Well, part of that too is the fact. So when we talk about this being an alpha, like it is very obtuse.
Yeah,
like I was making mistakes like crazy because the game doesn't make any effort to tell you what to do or how to do it. So I mean, you get that letter from the warden, which is goddamn near useless. Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't even. I think you mentioned this, Nick, when we were talking about it. You didn't realize that you could take grants. Right, initially, because there's nothing to suggest it. So I can't imagine anyone just picking this up and just being like, "Stand back, boys!" Right? Here's the Shawshanks, and just pumping it out of their dick. Like I just like you'd have to start over like many times. Mm-hmm. I ended up watching a YouTube a beginner's guide to prison architect, just to get the basics, because certain things, there's also zero feedback when something's not working. Right. Like you can think like, okay, I need to place a bed here, or place this room here, or place this door here, and if it's just red, it's just red. Mm-hmm. There's no reasoning behind it, and that is something that needs to be fixed. I found that really frustrating.
Yeah, that's true. It definitely lacks a lot of polish still. It's definitely highly mechanics emphasized at the moment.
Yeah. But that grant system is actually really cool because it does give you some rails to kind of follow down. Like if you don't know what facilities you need to build, that actually gives you a checklist to go after. And then also, if you manage it right, the resources that you need in order to pull it off.
Yeah. Yeah. But the checklist is also, it gets one layer down into the onion of like obtuseness, but not, not anything more than that, because it can say you need to build an exercise yard, but what that exactly entails is cryptic at best. Like the hoverovers that you can get.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when I say that is like stuff that I never would have thought to build, because so much stuff is open to you to build. Figuring out how any given thing works is left primarily to the wiki. But like to know, okay, these are the parts of a functioning prison, and then kind of being left to my own devices about how to make them. Right.
Yeah.
It
felt like a very detailed, very close up sim, to me. Like this is not necessarily my genre, which I think is part of why I wanted to call you Kole in for this. Is that even with SimCity, like I got, I'm strictly a SimCity man. Mm-hmm. I didn't go to SimCity 2000 and all of its water pipes and electricity and stuff. Like SNES SimCity is about as complicated as I want a simulation to be. Mm-hmm. Right. It's it's just kind of not for me. So it's not. I think it's very interesting, and that deeper kind of emotional point that's trying to make, I think, is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's political. Like it's not just emotional. It's political. Like this is saying like here's what happens when you put profit alongside humanity, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I have family who's in the corrections industry, if you can call it that. They're public workers, and like just this tide of privatization that's happening is like just nuts, because they'll tell you stories and it's like, oh yeah, this is not too far off.
Yeah.
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 Yep.
It's worth noting that it's made by a British developer too.
Yeah.
So I wonder how much of that is, if this is a kind of a problem there, or if this is more of a critique, of a specific kind of American prison system.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to make any kind of pretensions to being any kind of expert on that, but
Right.
it's interesting. It adds kind of a little bit of an angle to it
Right.
in either case. So, yeah. So is this this is worth checking out?
Absolutely. I really want to see where it continues to go from here too. Like they are releasing updates at a fairly steady pace.
Yeah.
It was one of the first games to come out on the Steam, not Greenlight, but early access platform. Yeah. And I love the developer, and I've loved their games in the past. So I think that with it being as obtuse, yes, but playable right now, it's going to be pretty cool by the time they reach the Grand 1.0.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. Like, I think its systems are great and there's a lot of potential there, but I personally am kind of reticent. Having played Alpha 12, I kind of want to see when it gets like to a later development stage before I invest a lot more time into it. So
yeah.
I
think playing the gaps is going to be a good way to go about it if you're going to get in right now.
Yeah.
Let a few versions come out every time before you jump back in again, and you'll have some whole new beginnings to check out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So next up, we're going to be talking about the Stanley Parable, which is an entirely different type of game. But interestingly, I was thinking about a kind of a parallel to them, where both of them take place in this kind of limited space, but make their progress through depth rather than like distance.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Like they're both kind of ocean, or they're both kind of trenches rather than oceans, so to speak. If that makes sense.
I'll do that.
Yeah. So this is it's essentially a source mod made by Davey Redden, and it just got a re-release on Steam, a high def re-release with a bunch of extra endings and extra content. And we've all played this game.
Yeah. And actually, Cole, did you play the original mod?
No,
at all?
no, I did not.
Yeah, I don't think any of us did, right, Gary?
Yeah, no, I didn't either.
So yeah, this is for anyone who did play the mod. I know there's additional comments that could be made as far as it being a remake, but I've heard it's pretty extended as far as content goes compared to the original, not just updated graphics and engine and what have you.
Yeah, if it was just graphics, I wouldn't be interested. The point of this game is not how it looks. It's not like like the killer graphics on the Stanley Parable,
right?
Yeah, I could see that being pretty funny though, like just selling the like them parodying HD remakes in general. But
yeah,
the Stanley Parable HD collection, where it's like this Gone Home, and
on their forums they actually refer to it as the Stanley Parable HD remix, a la Street Fighter 2 HD remix. So. So anyway,
they're funny men.
Yeah, they're good guys. So the Stanley Parable, it is a first-person
exploration.
Exploration game. Definitely not shooter. Definitely not really adventure or action of any sort.
Well, somebody didn't get the hidden 12th ending where you have to kill John Carmack in a field of demons, and
and so the straightest, most vanilla way to play the game is there's a narrator. You start, in this room at a computer, and he's telling the story. And if you listen to narrators every command, you end up very quickly, probably within 5-10 minutes, at an ending. Like there's a story told. But the real game comes into play in that there's multiple points in the game where you can go against the narrator's story that he's telling, because he keeps saying what you're going to do before you do it. If you do something different, each of those leads down a separate path. And so, like I said, the actual vanilla story that you can follow is all of 10 minutes, and yet there's 3-4 hours of gameplay in this thing. Purely by exploring these other avenues.
Or 8 hours if you try to do everything. So it doubles if you want to do everything.
Yeah, one extra ending that adds 4 hours of content.
Yeah. Think of it like spokes off of a wheel. Is really what it is in each of these choices. And a parable is a short story that proves a point. And that's what these different spokes are. So it's the narrator. Depending on what you do, there's kind of different tones that they take. That could be, there's the Stanley parable is a parable for different things.
Yeah.
Depending on which way you go. And the fact that it has so many is really important to kind of the main kind of thematic point of it, which we'll talk about in our spoiler space section. But this is so, man, I mean, I haven't talked to anyone who doesn't love this.
Yeah, I agree. There's nothing, I can't say anything but like rave things for how great this game is.
Yeah.
And I really like that a lot of the different parables that it tells are sometimes actually making fun of other games and their gameplay elements.
So sometimes directly.
Yeah. And not just one or two either. Especially I don't think it's too big of a spoiler to say that at some point the narrator gets mad at you and says, "Is this what you want?" and displays a leaderboard. For a game that there is no points, there's no nothing of that sort.
It's very meta.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Meta is definitely if you had to describe this game in one word, that'd certainly be the one.
Yeah, it has a tremendous range of emotions that it can evoke too. Just kind of I went from laughing my ass off at this game dicking around with me to being really contemplative and just kind of bummed out.
Yeah,
right?
There's definitely some bum routes to explore down.
Yeah. It's also the production. One of the things I love about this game is that it, and we're going to talk about this with the game we're doing in the next episode too, is games that appreciate a sense of moderation to it. So everything about this game plays to its strengths of the resources that it has. It's a source mod. They got this really amazing narrator. So let's use the fuck out of it. Let's make that the central feature of the game because it's really great and we have it. Let's use a lot of the same sets with these minor kind of variations on them. Let's have one character, for the most part. It is a modest product that succeeds at 100%, because it's not, because it is that, it succeeds in the same way that a short story does. And then as a game, it succeeds because of that moderation.
Yeah, it's worth saying that this game, the original mod was made by one guy plus getting the narrator and what music or what have you. The remake is that one guy plus an artist, same narrator, I believe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, same guy.
Narrator and some music composers. It's still a very much 1-2 man project if you don't consider getting some people to write some music for you as a full-time thing.
Yeah, just a tremendous amount of creative energy and creating riffs on this same space. And the way that it plays with space is incredibly, great too. There are lots of times where it does some stuff that I've really only ever seen an antechamber before, Yeah,
the non-Euclidean geometry elements.
Taking 7 left turns and not ending up back where you started.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I really liked about the way that it explores some of the avenues is it does it explores fully the thing that I think Valve does pretty well. This being a source mod is kind of interesting in that point. They make it seem like you in Portal and Half-Life 2 a lot. It makes you seem like you're going off the route on your own, and then the game is it makes you aware that the game actually expected you to do that, and that's something that's not done very well by a whole lot of other people. This one, I'll talk more about particular endings in the spoiler section, but there's one point where one of the endings you can go down actually seems like it feels like you broke the game, and then the narrator comes in and is like, "You thought you broke the game, didn't you?"
Yeah.
It's so good at catching you trying to stretch its limits, and it surprises you every time.
Yeah, you can't break something that's designed to be broken. And that's what this is. I have not seen anything, and I got everything I could get out of it, and then I started looking online for other things that other people had found.
And there's still more. Yeah.
And there's still more, and nobody, I haven't found anyone who has actually broken it. It's really just everything that's possible in here is intended and delightful. Yeah, we should talk just for a moment before we get to the spoiler section about price, because that's going to be a hang up for certain kinds of people for any experience like this, and same thing with Gone Home or Dear Esther or something like that.
Right.
Because it is the same price as, say, a Bastion, which is a more traditional and longer game. I know, I have my spot on it, and Kole and I have talked about it on our shows, but Nick hasn't talked on mic about how he takes those things into consideration.
Right, and we did mention a little bit in the episode about Brothers.
Yeah.
But it's worth saying again, like, that is not, game length should not be the only deciding factor in the pricing of a game. That at the very least, like, I could say plenty of things why this is worth its cost, but I think the main point to me is I like this game so much, I want to give the developer money to explore other things. Like, I want to see more from this guy, and if this game doesn't sell, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So that to me is the main drive as to the price point being totally worth it.
There's something to be said about like the way that this game was released, and we've name dropped the other two games that are like this several times, Gone Home and Dear Esther. Dear Esther more so than Gone Home, but just the idea that these are mods, these are things that were created and released for free, and they generated enough buzz that they kind of ascended to this new, like, okay, this is the canonical retail version, so that more people can more people can play it, more people can experience this thing. And I'm really, really happy that is a thing that can happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's sort of something very new too. Previous to that, the best that a really good mod developer could do, and certainly this is nothing to shrug off.
Get bought by Valve.
Right, exactly. They can get bought by Valve.
Poor Portal people.
Yeah, certainly not a bad route to go down, but there's only so many people that can be hired at Valve for their mod skills. So being able to turn a quality mod into a full retail product is again, I agree with Kole. It's a really cool thing that can happen nowadays.
Yeah,
with Kickstarter and Greenlight.
Did you guys see that Gone Home was originally an Amnesia mod?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Really?
That's how they prototyped it.
That's going to go down with my trivia about how Dark Corners of the Earth is a Simon the Sorcerer 3D source engine. Like mod. Like, that's my favorite mod for Simon the Sorcerer 3D. Call it Cthulhu Dark Corners of the Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I did not know that.
They released it as a playable thing.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Have we said, so the other thing that's hard about Stanley Parable, especially when you start talking about a value proposition for it, is that the less you know about it going into it, the better.
Yeah.
But for that, like, they made the most amazing demo that I've ever played.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's up there with, like, the Metal Gear Solid 2 demo.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so good.
Well, they name check it. Like, they have that gallery of amazing demos.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. If you aren't aware, pick up the demo. Yeah, the demo actually doesn't contain any portion of the game, the full retail game. It's its own separate entity that is very much in the same style of the game and could pretty much be considered part of the game itself. Like, I don't think anyone should play this game and not play the demo too.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I don't think I've ever considered for any other game before.
No. Like, once I play the game, I don't really want... There's a couple series I've done that for because I'm a ridiculous completist. Like, I wanted to know, like, what's in the Fallout demo? What's different in that than original Fallout? But never, not often. It's funny that, though, they do name check Metal Gear Solid 2 because the Metal Gear Solid 2 demo is a troll.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that is something that Hideo Kojima is being goofy and kind of, playing with the idea, and it is about, it's intentional how much that doesn't, follow the actual game.
Right.
Whereas it's like a thematic demo. Like, this is actually, even though it contains none of the content, this is an excellent demo. Like, you know exactly what you're going to get from the game.
Yeah.
Based on it.
The only similar thing is the Limits and Demonstrations short story for Kentucky Route Zero, which again is name checked in this one. That was released back this summer.
I've not played that.
Yeah,
I haven't either.
It's real good.
But that's cool that they went down a similar route for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to check that out in the future, comrades.
Oh.
Cole's giving us our first listener / participant recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Network friend recommendation. So we're gonna let's move into the spoiler section.
Okay.
Before we do that, though, let's do admin, just in case anyone wants. So if you haven't played Stanley Parable yet, listen to us do admin, and then quit listening to the show.
Yeah.
And then play Stanley Parable.
And then listen to our admin again and do all the things we say.
But if you have listened to Stanley Parable, stick around after this little section here, and we'll have a bit more where we talk about the game in depth.
Yep.
Without regard for those people who haven't played.
Yep. So by way of admin, just to get it, because we want people who haven't played it to hear the admin stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Ratings and reviews are very important when a podcast is in its infancy. Yes, so please do that. And then Kole, on the off chance there is not a crossover audience.
Well, there are other great shows on the network. Do we want to go into the full list or?
Let's do it. Let's not describe them.
Yes.
Uh,
Let's just say the names.
Give me a minor list, Kole.
Okay, watch out for Fireballs, Bonfireside Chat, The Level, Pilot Season, Those Damn Ross Kids. Oh gosh, what else am I missing here?
Abject Suffering.
Abject Suffering, yes. Always forgetting Abject Suffering.
All available on the same network,
Yes.
Duckfeed.tv,
Yes.
that Kole has graciously provided the hosting for this show on as well.
Yeah.
So thank you, Kole.
Yeah, and there's also Hexcrank, which is a survival horror blog.
Yep. All worth, everything that we do is worth your time or we wouldn't do it.
Yep.
So stay tuned after the break to hear us talk about Stanley Parable in spoilery terms.
All right. Anyone who's stuck around now, please have played Stanley Parable, because we are going to be talking about a lot of spoilerific stuff at this point. So, Gary, why don't you take us away with some spoilery stuff on the game?
So the two, I figure the spoiler space is the two things I wanted to get across is one, it'd be good to talk about special moments and endings that are best served as a surprise. So they're just kind of favorites that we can gush about and talk about.
Yeah.
And then I want to talk a little bit about like what I think the game's getting at on whole, the same way Prison Architect does.
Okay.
So let's do the first and then the second. Kole, what are some standout moments or the most resonant ending for you?
So I've got two. The one that I like most, let's just say, like as an experience, is the confusion ending. The one where the line pops up. Just because that does have the most false starts. That had me laughing the most. The one that has kind of stuck with me and is actually really haunting is the work ending, I think it's called. It's the one where you end up, you pick up the phone, and you end up in the apartment with your mannequin wife, and it says like, press P to tell your wife you love her, press T to tell stories to your children, stuff like that.
Press Q to question everything.
Or
press Q to question nothing.
Yeah, press 1 to continue question nothing. And then at the end it says just please die, and you wait, and then you die and it cuts off in the middle of the sentence. That's like I don't know what it is, but it just reminds me of like Synecdoche, New York, or let's just say there's a bunch of Charlie Kaufman shit in this game, but that is the most Charlie Kaufman-ass thing that can happen here, I think.
Yeah. Kaufman-esque being the new Kafka-esque.
Yes.
It also reminds me of work. So there's the other part of it that's resonant.
Yeah, just that your apartment slowly turns into your office with every key press, right?
Yep.
And that ending is also, we already mentioned the word meta, but that one's certainly like the narrator actually getting mad at you for playing the game.
Yeah,
the only way you can play it.
Yeah,
he's talking to the player.
Yeah, he's talking directly to the player, and he's like, you're gonna press this button. You're only here to press buttons.
Yeah, and just saying, like, every moment that you continue pressing these buttons is a moment that you're killing yourself, or you are opting to do this.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a little would you kindly.
Yep.
In a way, if it's about games, but they add it, by making the comparison. Of games to work and to real life. Like that's where it kind of bridges the gap and does something a little bit more than BioShock did.
Right.
Like, yes, when you play a game, you're here to do what the narrator says. However, every day you go into work, you're there to do what the narrator says. Every day that you are making surprisingly few choices in your life. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of a taking something to a logical conclusion, but it's not untrue either. Mm-hmm. In a lot of cases.
Yeah.
So I found that also very resonant.
A bunch of the endings are about like the death of identity. I don't know if I'm stepping up ahead of time, but like that so much is about that. It's like game, life, and work all collapsing into this really bleak singularity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there's no room left for you inside of that.
Yeah. But what about you, Nick?
I'll go with the bomb ending, which it's the most direct. Well, aside from maybe splitting right at the door choice, it's kind of the most direct oppositional choice. It's just one splinter off from the route. You don't have to go down a lot of forks to get to it. You just right at the end hit the switch that is turning on the mind control machine, and I like how it sets up this whole area that it seems very gamey in every other context. Like, if this was a level in any other game, you'd be rushing around trying to figure out the puzzle, trying to defuse this bomb that is now going off. But it's Stanley Parable. There's of course nothing to defuse. It's all a ruse. Like that, the game, the narrator eventually comes clean and is like that. You can run around all you want, but the counter's only counting down to your death. There's no changing this.
Yeah, they're kind of linked, those two endings. The fact that you are on a train and they ain't getting off this train, which for some reason Final Fantasy VII is supposed to be positive. Like they're constantly saying just like they ain't getting off this train once it starts. That's terrifying, Barrett.
That is terrifying.
Like I don't want that. Get a hand, hand clops. Down
to you.
Just so I don't end up repeating anything. So the specific ending, I'm going to go for the suicide ending. Yeah, which because I think it speaks into this kind of, what I think the game's ultimately about, which is the one where you're in that area where everything is nice and beautiful and the lights keep coming and the narrator is begging you not to kill yourself, which you're doing because it's the only thing available in a video game. Yeah. So he succeeded and made everything right, for you. And you are this precocious child that cannot be pleased, no matter what. But like, I think the reason why I like it is because, it's one of the most direct one, speaking to like the oppositional kind of nature of art and stories. Like, when you create write a story or create a piece of art, the author has something intended and something that they want, and the reader is bringing everything of themselves to it. And there's a conflict there that is not always apparent, and by telling all these little stories, where in different ways and from different kind of angles, that conflict is highlighted in this game, and sometimes the narrator, is exerting control because he demands it and because he is all powerful. And sometimes he is sad because you're taking it. And sometimes, you're a real person and you have control because you're trapped in a basement going in loops. Like you're actually a human and you're not making the choices that he wants you to make. And that's what, like, the biggest thing I kind of took from this, like the linking theme between the different parables was this, oppositional idea of storytelling and art,
Yeah.
Which speaks to me a lot.
I definitely agree with that. Yeah. And I think that is like a huge point that definitely I don't think has ever been brought up as a theme in a game before, which is interesting.
It's a little bit like, it's a little BioShocky. Because BioShock does that a little bit, but it's not as antagonistic, and it's not exploring it from different ways.
This is like absurdist in the academic sense, like speaking specifically to the suicide part of it, right?
Yeah.
It's it's like the video game version of Duck Amuck.
Yeah.
where it's Daffy the character versus the animator.
It is sometimes. Yeah, and the animator is this malevolent force. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the narrator, all he wants is to tell a story,
right?
And he can't do it. And which is speaks to me as somebody who will tell stories. And then sometimes the narrator is just exhausted. Like the thing about that perfect world heaven, or not, it's not actually the heaven ending, which is a different thing. The space ending is that he's so exhausted and defeated by the end of that. Mm-hmm. He's trying everything, and you are just not. That's not enough. So much that you would rather die than live in this world he's created. As a creative person, that speaks to me really deeply.
Yeah. And even goes so far as to say if you die, if you leave this, you take me with you. Your death is my death. As regards this little atom of story, right?
Which is in huge contrast to the weird ending that Kole brought up, where the character dies. This is he's telling a story in which the character dies, and that's the ultimate resolve of it. But in the space suicide ending, that's not his story he wanted to tell. He wanted to bring you something beautiful. He wanted just to let you stare into this gorgeous portal for however long you wanted, and you instead go climb upstairs like what 4 or 5 times and
in the blandest environment.
Yeah.
He is presenting you pearls, and the swine just wants to go stick his face in shit. You know, in the sticky stuff video games are made out of. You know, like the worst bat combine, you know, janitorial closet.
You know, I actually, in my explorative ways, I went into the Stanley Parable totally blind and immediately chose the other door because, of course, he told me to go one door, I'm going to go the other one.
Yeah.
And I ended up at the space ending, and I couldn't actually bring myself to climb up the stairs a second time.
Yeah.
Like, I tried to do whatever I could.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was the third time, but, like, I climbed up the stairs, and I was like, okay, like, I can do this. Here's an option for me. You know, I'm going to go kill myself off the top of this. And when I hit the ground and was still alive, I was like, either this is purposely an infinite loop, or I can't handle the anguish of the narrator enough. So I'm going to restart and see what other routes there are.
If you go back to the space, it's different. He adds bells and whistles every time you go back.
Oh, really?
Yep. So I'd kill myself, and then I would start climbing the stairs again, and he'd be like, no, please, please. And I'd be like, okay. And go back to the space, and he would do a new visual effect and a new sound. And stuff. Like, he just kept trying so hard.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We should also, I mean, the other part of it that's so fun is, you know, people who will argue that this isn't a game. The game is hide and go seek.
Yeah.
The game is finding the stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Which is incredibly engaging. Like, everything you can do. Like, when I first went over that tram, I was like, I wonder if I could jump down there. And of course you can.
Yep.
Like, you can do everything. Like, if you can see it, you can do it.
And there's that, you know, what's I really like about that portion, too, is that there's another door on the floor that is very much open and light coming in out of, and you can't get down there.
No.
Yep.
Like, it's
but there's an
like
ending.
There's an ending there, yeah. But if you do jump off and try and get down there and die, there's an ending.
That's the first thing I did in the game. Like, was I disobeyed him and then jumped off that thing just to see if I could do it. And he says something like, you know, in your desire to be a free person, you've killed yourself.
Yeah.
Which, like, what? That's beautiful. Like, in your desire to be a free person, you've killed yourself. That's true of, like, everyone who's ever fought in a war. Like, anyone who's ever been tried for murder. Like, you know, in some sense, like, everybody who has, you know, done that, like, or not been tried, but been executed, rather. Like, on some level has yeah.
Yeah, like, and that's another, like, overriding theme that pops up every once in a while. Like, I forget what it was, but the ending where he decides that you're actually not Stanley, like, figures out, okay, you're a real person. So
it's the basement ending.
I think maybe
the real person one. Yeah, I think the one where that's the basement.
Yeah, it's the one where you end up, like, above Stanley and you have no choice but to restart. He's just kind of like, okay, yep, Stanley actually knows how to, like, play this game and he has no consequences for it. He can make the right choice every time. So let's just do this. And he's trying to usher you throughout it. Just saying, like, okay, because you're able to make a choice at this, you're actually really dangerous. So I need to put up the safeguards. And that's where he starts putting up, like, the fences around areas where you would normally fall over.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, there's an interesting bit about that, too, is when you're above him, he's pleading with the Stanley that's in the level to make a choice.
Right.
And it's not doing anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it doesn't have agency. Like, it's no longer a player.
Yeah, so the narrator doesn't get anything out of there being an automaton going through his story either.
Yeah, it would just be salty bets.
Yeah.
At that point, so it would just be robots entertaining other robots. But yeah, just, I mean, you know, the fact, like, this game, it's interesting to contrast it with Gone Home, which, like, touched me in a very concrete way. Like, it touched me in a less, like, this was more haunting than that. Like, that broke my heart and it was great and haunted me. But this was more like, it took me a while to put my finger on what it was making me feel and why it was making me feel it. Yeah. And I loved it. This is a fucking kick-ass year for, you know,
story-based games.
Yeah, story games.
Yeah, Gone Home.
Exploration.
Gone Home was the gut and the heart. This is the head.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
You know, and back to your point about, you know, people saying this is not a game, which I could not. There's no way I could understand that viewpoint, especially in contrast to Gone Home. Like, Gone Home is very much a interactive story.
Yeah,
like, there's very little game to it. There's so much.
There's a gradient. Like, there's Dear Esther to Gone Home to this.
I agree. Yeah, but
to a Machine for Pigs, probably, I guess.
This takes so much from, you know, gaming as a medium, and it's like history that you can't.
That doesn't necessarily make it a game. It just makes it about games.
I agree,
Yeah.
but I think it's also more gamey purely in how you explore through it too.
It is, yeah.
To that point, anyway, like the Gone Home is a good story for anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Like that would be an interesting thing to put any random person passing by a computer that has it on to sit down and play. This is very much aimed at people who play games.
It's a game about games in some ways, or at least about interactive media.
Yeah.
In some ways,
like websites and CD-ROMs.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That you can get from your library at school.
Yeah,
yeah, that you can write. But yeah, I just bowled over by this. Like, what a good year
I agree.
for this kind of thing. Like,
yeah. So I got every ending myself aside from the save the baby for 4 hours ending. What
Right.
like what is that? Have you guys YouTubed it?
Yeah, I YouTubed it. So basically, it's mostly about games. Like he's just talking about games as a medium the whole time. But he basically just comes in, checks up on you, and after a certain point, he's like, you know what? I think this game is a little too boring, and it adds like another wall opens up, and there's a dog falling into like a fire. Or no, it's the baby's going into a fire. He's falling into like a pit of acid or something, and it adds another button. So you have to save the baby, then save the dog, then save the baby, then save the dog. And I actually forget what you get after 4 hours, but it does actually have an ending.
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Do you remember, Gary? What?
No, I watched on YouTube, but it was right after I played the game.
Oh,
I
yeah.
played it right when I came out. So since I didn't experience it, I guess that really speaks to the fact that it's a game, because people who could say this is a movie, like the stuff I watched on YouTube, I remember, a quarter as well as the stuff I actually experienced. Like,
Agreed.
There's an intimacy to the experience that comes with just having the controller in your hand too. I'm more just, fascinated. I love that they actually did that.
Yeah.
The museum is really great too.
Yeah.
That was
really cool.
I really loved that. Like, real neat. Well, yeah. So I think that's our spoiler space. You listen to our admin.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on, Cole.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll tag you in the future too.
Yeah.
Or if there's anything particularly that you really, really love, let us know.
Yeah, so thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.